who's winning, and who's up shit creek without a paddle. This is your stop for unbiased election projections with BS free talk, analysis, and one cranky politico's insight into the very future of the world you live in. Broadcasting from the gateway to the motherlode in Waterford, California. This is the Election Recon Podcast. And now, he's carpet-bombing partisan zealots back to the Stone Age by delivering cold, hard reality to the fanatics first class. Your host, Army veteran, political operative, and election junkie, Josh Whitfield.
Welcome to Election Recon, our special election night eve, special full podcast episode just for you. It is Monday, November the 2nd, 2020. It is 11 o'clock-ish here on the west coast of the United States. In these states united, and as you can see, I look beat, I look tired, I am absolutely exhausted. It has been a hell of a campaign season, and like 1,000 other commanders on 1,000 other battlefields, I wait for the dawn to see how America is going to decide the very fate of its future. I'm Josh Whitfield. Thanks for joining us tonight. We are now less than 24 hours before the polls close, and in fact, the first two towns in the United States have already counted their votes. Dixville Notch and Milford, New Hampshire. Man, I'm tired. New Hampshire have already counted, and 26 people. We know 26 votes out of the millions and millions that are going to be cast today. Donald Trump, for the next several hours, will be leading the presidency of the United States. He is leading 16 votes to 10 in the national popular vote and in the state of New Hampshire. We'll see if those margins hold once millions of more votes come in. Welcome tonight. Tonight is going to be a little different than our normal episodes. We are going to have Ashley Stubbs, my friend and fellow professional in politics. She's going to join, and we are going to cover every nook and cranny of the national race for you, so you can listen probably tomorrow because most of you are probably asleep. But we're gonna put that out as an election preview, so you can have something to bide the time to tide you over until the polls start closing around 8 p.m. On the East Coast or Eastern Standard Time. Let's go right into the state of the race because Ashley is waiting on the phone lines for us, and I want to get right to her and just talk about the race for most of the podcast. So first and foremost, I'm going to start with governor's races across the United States, just so that we're clear. All the models out there, a lot of the prognosticators have released their final models tonight, their final predictions, and almost unanimously, not everyone, but a vast majority, right, left, and center prognosticators out there have the governor's races at 27 for Republicans, 23 for Democrats, a +1 gain for Republicans in the election. That is the state of Montana, where it is expected to flip from Democrat blue to Republican red. Let's go now to the state of the race for the presidency of the United States. Let's go check in our one final time with 538.com. Nate Silver, the standard bearer of the professional prognosticators out there and the mainstream media punditry. He has it tonight as around the 11 o'clock hour. He has it 10 in 100. 10% chance of a Donald Trump win, 89 in 100. 89% chance for Joe Biden, a 1 in 100 for a 269 tie. And as we have said over and over again on this show, a 269 tie, conventional wisdom would suggest that Donald Trump would likely be reelected in that scenario when it goes to the House tiebreaker. The 538 model has it 348 electoral votes projected for Joe Biden, 190 for Donald Trump, and the margin in the popular vote is about the same, just under 10 digits just under 10% or double digits for Joe Biden. You guys are going to have to excuse me. I am exhausted tonight, so please bear with my gaffes and mistakes. Election projection, and the blogging czar or Caesar, as he calls himself, has finalized his final projection, and that projection has moved in Donald Trump's favor tonight. However, his final projection is 278 for Joe Biden, just 8 electoral votes, one state only, in favor of a Joe Biden victory tonight, 260 for Donald Trump. The states that moved to Trump in the model, Florida and the Nebraska 2nd Congressional. So very, very close, 278, 260 projection out of electionprojections.com. His projected share of the popular vote, 49.4% for Biden, 45.6% for Donald Trump. I'm going to go ahead and update you. He projects the Senate tied at 50-50, a 50-50 tie for the Senate. He moved Iowa, Republican Senator Joni Ernst, over to a Republican hold. He still has North Carolina going to Cal Cunningham over Tom Tillis, and that is where he has it at 50-50. His final House projection, 241 for Democrats, 194 for Republicans. Moving to RedEaglePolitics.com, the conservative fan favorite here on our show. His final projection tonight, with no toss-up states, 290 for Donald Trump, 248 for Joe Biden. His final projection of the Senate, 51 for Republicans, 49 for Democrats. His final projection matches our model's projections as of this hour. His final projection for the House is 229 for the Democrats, 206 for the Republicans. Moving to statespoll.com, statespoll.com has it 322 for Donald Trump, 215 or 16, I should say, for Joe Biden. His final Senate projection map, 55 for Republicans, 45 for the Democrats. He has Republicans protecting all of their seats except Colorado, picking up the seat in Alabama, and picking up some big wins in the Midwest. That would be a 2-seat pickup for Republicans. A final check of the Real Clear Politics Battleground aggregate comparison in polling of the battleground states from 2016 to 2020 has it down a little bit for Joe Biden tonight at 1.5%, 1.5%, a virtual tie, but a slight edge there as we've seen it bounce 1 to 2 points between either candidates. It's going to finish in Joe Biden's favor with the RCP battleground aggregate tonight. Going to our model, where our model is now approaching midnight. Again, this is not our model's final projections. We have a whole batch of polling and early voting data that needs to go in. We will run the model twice just to be sure tomorrow, once at 12 o'clock, once at 3 p.m. So our model will finish with its final projections at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right before the polls close. We're going to make sure that we get the most accurate result that we can. We've had one shift today, one shift in the election recon model for President of the United States. It is a big one. For the first time in our model, Donald Trump has the edge. He is in the lead in our model's projection. The state that shifted, Pennsylvania, and it moves by 0.2%, by the most razor-thin margin possible almost. It moves from tilt Biden to tilt Trump. That leaves the election recon projection scoreboard tonight at 280 electoral votes projected for Donald Trump, 258 for Joe Biden. The election recon projection forecast now has the race 52 and 100, or a 52% chance of a Donald Trump victory, 48% 1% chance of a Joe Biden victory, 1 in 100 or a 1% chance for a 269 tie. Our model projected share of the popular vote is now 50.6% for Joe Biden, 47.4% for Donald Trump. Our model is pretty much suggesting that there is a 3.5% polling error. 3.5% polling error right now in the national polls that are out there. Moving now to the United States Senate, no model shifts. Therefore, the election recon projection scoreboard for the United States Senate stands 51 seats for Republicans, 49 seats for the Democrats. Moving now to the U.S. House of Representatives. No model shifts today, but we do expect a lot tomorrow based on how razor thin a lot of these House races are in our model and with the amount of data that is going to be run. We currently still project the House 239 seats for Democrats, 196 seats for Republicans. Moving now to governor's races across the country. As we said before, everyone has it 27-23. The election recon projection scoreboard will stay 27 projected governor's mansions for Republicans, 23 for Democrats. We do not expect that model to change tomorrow. Moving now to state legislative races across the country. No model shifts. Our model currently stands as of tonight, 29 projected upper chambers. And of course, this is the upper chamber or Nebraska's unicameral chamber for state legislative upper chambers. 29 projected to be in control of Republicans. 21 projected to be in control of the Democrats. Moving now to state legislative lower chambers. No model shifts. As of tonight, the election recon projection scoreboard stands 27 projected lower chambers in control of Republicans, 22 in control of the Democrats. Whew. I'm very tired. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and go to the phones. Ashley Stubbs and I are going to talk through the state of the race, every nook and cranny, how we got to this point tonight, and what may happen tomorrow. We're not going to leave anything left in the bag. We're going to put everything out on the table, everything out on the proverbial field for you. We hope you enjoy today's show. Without any further ado, let's bring on Mrs. Ashley Stubbs. Ashley Stubbs in the house. Well, not quite in the house, I guess. On the phone in my house. Welcome back, Ashley Stubbs. You are, I believe, you are, I don't believe, I know, you are the first time second guest ever here on the Election Recon podcast, and we certainly appreciate you giving us your time on Election Night Eve. And what we are doing here on Election Night Eve, I don't know, other than my eyeballs are taped open. I have more caffeine flowing through my body than should be humanly allowable. I'm exhausted. It has been the longest election cycle of my life and career. And quite frankly, the fact that we're here doing this at the demand of producers Jeff and Lauren while they're sitting in air-conditioned rooms and eating crowns somewhere, quite frankly, Ashley, really pisses me off. But here we are to please the fans. Welcome on board.
Hey, happy election eve. I cleared my schedule. You said, Ashley, you want to come back? And I made it happen.
Well, who are you? Who are you with this positive attitude? What are you? Oh, it's good to be here. It's a good night. What are you, the weather woman? Come on, man. Listen, Ash, I am tired. I am cranky. I am exhausted, and I am going to cry about it some more. I'm going to do that.
Well, it's like one of those things, the closer we get, the closer we are to it all being over.
Well, yes, of course you would bring all this positivity into my cranky attitude tonight because, you've always been the optimist in this yin-yang relationship you and I have. And, to pull from our nerddom, to go to the West Wing, the holy grail political TV shows, I am the Toby Ziegler in this relationship, and you are...
I'm Sam Seaborn.
Yes, you are. I was about to say Josh Lineman, but Sam Seaborn's a way better choice. You are definitely the Sam Seaborn in this relationship.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yes, and yes, I'm Toby Ziegler, you're Sam Seaborn, and the fact that I have a cigar in my hands right now just goes to prove the point that I am a true Toby Ziegler.
That just reinforces that. Yeah, that really does.
Well, Ashley, I think first and foremost, tomorrow, everyone just better strap themselves in because it's going to be a wild ride coming to an abrupt conclusion. Maybe not abrupt as in it's going to be decided tomorrow, but at some point here, votes are going to start being counted and we're going to get an idea of who's going to win. And it really feels like to me tonight that the big mo, the momentum is in the sails of Donald Trump and Republicans as we head into the finish. Really, we feel here at Election Recon that if Donald Trump and Republicans are going to win tomorrow, there's going to have to be a polling error. But our model here certainly suggests that there is going to be one. The big question on our minds here at Election Recon is how big of a polling error is it going to be?
Oh boy, I think you're right. And the polls are changing all the time. The polling is changing quickly, and it's just on a razor's edge in those states where it's going to matter the most. And I keep seeing it in places like Pennsylvania. That's the one that sticks out in my mind. I really do think that there is going to be an error. I agree with you. And I think that it's going to happen in those demographics, the sleeper demographics, the people of color, the women that are going to show up in numbers we weren't anticipating, or they're not going to show up in ways that we were anticipating. For example, in Florida, the Latinos don't seem to be coming out with as much gusto and enthusiasm for Biden as they did for Hillary in 2016. And that even really says something because the Democrats didn't do super well in Florida in 2016. But that being said, that's where my thoughts are. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I generally agree with that. I think, I get really irritated, Ashley. I get really irritated with people who talk in demographics and paint it with one big brush. Demographic groups like women, blacks, Latinos, none of these demographic groups all vote with one voice. There's going to be millions and millions of women who vote for Donald Trump and millions of women who vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden is very likely to win, the majority of women voting for him. But, I think pollsters make this mistake a lot, and I think it's really lazy of them. They often just cookie cutter these demographics out as they weight their polls, and it's just not true. The people in the suburbs of Milwaukee are going to vote differently than the people in the suburbs of a city in Texas or California or Florida. And so I just think I think that's the reason why a lot of the polling quality has diminished over the last couple cycles. And people vote differently by region more than they do by demographic. And, I think it's just different. People vote different coast to coast, border to border, and the pollsters should know better. It's just different. It's different culturally and demographically by region and geography. It's just different. It's just not the same.
It's not. And, I love that you mentioned that. When you put it that way, I immediately think of Orange County in California. Talk about a place that just bucks the trend in terms of, what where the party lines divide, where they fall, and even frankly how much they've changed in the last 4 to 6 years. Places that have been Republican for a long time are just starting to edge over the other way. You think of Congresswoman Katie Porter, but it goes both ways. They also became Republican in surprising times.
Right. That's absolutely right because, you look at the results from 2016 and pretty much geographically, I should say, God, I am so tired. Geographically speaking, I should say, California bucked the trend in a major way while the rest of the landmass of the United States really swung hard to the right. California swung just as hard in the other direction to the left. And the only other state that really did that as hard as California in 2016 was Utah. And I think really that was a lot of Mormons who felt uncomfortable with President Trump, and so they voted for Evan McMullin, who was a independent Republican Mormon running for president. And I really get the sense. That I don't think we're going to see that again. I think Utah is going to swing way back to the right because I think President Trump wasn't the threat the Mormons thought he was going to be, and he proved himself with his Supreme Court picks. And on that note, I really believe that if Democrats lose tomorrow night, if Joe Biden loses the election, I really think that it's going to be this attack on Amy Coney Barrett, now Justice Barrett. These attacks on her faith and stuff like this from the left, that it coalesced the party back to Donald Trump. I mean, we saw that over the summer, Trump's approval ratings with the Republican Party fell into the 80s, and now polls would suggest it's back into the 90s. And I really think Democrats may have shot themselves in the foot. Ashley, I really do. I think the court. The court, as you know, Ashley, is the one issue that can unify the factions of the Republican Party. The neocons, the paleocons, the Trumpers, and the moderates and the establishment. Everyone agrees on originalist court picks. And so, this whole Supreme Court fight may have rallied the Republicans to coalesce around the president, along with the Democrats' threats to pack the court if they take power, abolish the Electoral College, and add states to subvert a 100-seat Senate. I think we're seeing a lot of Republicans who were ready to jump ship or not vote or give their vote in protest to someone else. I really think they've stopped and had a second look at this thing. I really see it in the races that I'm involved in, and they're saying, look, I got to hold my nose and swallow the medicine here because the other side is even more scary to me than the issues that I have with the president.
Well, I think you're right. And the strategy between the Democrats and the Republicans doesn't just stop there. I think that they've both taken really extreme approaches to their ground game too, Josh. And we were talking about that before. What is your take on ground game right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll be the other major part of if the Democrats lose in the post-mortem, I should say, at the DNC. That's the difference in ground game is going to be a big deal. The Republicans did not give up the traditional ground game due to COVID, and Democrats did, and that has Democrats worried and scrambling. I talked to a Democrat operative here in California just tonight, and she was very concerned that they didn't canvass, and they've seen their internals tighten, and they're very worried about it, and I think they should be. You and I both know it's good for 1.5 points in a close race, the better ground game. Generally speaking, and our model here at Election Recon, in all the races we have tilt, it's going to matter. It's a big deal. Democrats should be worried about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the ground game, it already bit them in the ass in 2016 with OFA. And I think you and I talked about this, Josh. OFA, Obama for America, was this ground game strategy that the Democrats developed in 2012 for Obama's reelection. It was where they sent people in, and months and months before, 15 months before the election, send folks in, set up a field office, and build relationships with the community, and then register, get people to turn out to vote, build a network of volunteers. And it was incredibly successful. They did it in states like Nevada. It totally worked. And they were so proud of it, they wrote a book and they put it out there. So it's not a secret that OFA worked. And in 2016, Republicans said, okay, great. And they took the page right out of the book and did the same exact thing. And I don't know why the Democrats just abandoned their same strategy. But that's how Donald Trump won states like Florida. The DNC and the Hillary campaign put almost no money into Florida at all, which is just wild to me that would happen. But it's like they're just not learning the lessons. And so I wonder, even in the age of COVID, I totally understand the messaging risk of, you want to be careful going door to door because you want to make sure that you're embracing that message of safety and that you are being safe. And yet, I think there are just so many ways that you could be creative and continue to engage, because as someone who, I've been, you and I have been on the back end, Josh. I mean, we've run campaigns in politics, and you get these volunteers that you ask them to make, it's a phone bank, and you give them 100 numbers, and it feels really burdensome. But God, I gotta say, I live in Spokane, Washington right now, is where I am to register to vote, and there is a guy running for a state house seat, and I like the incumbent well, so I already voted for the incumbent. But the challenger, really, really kind, and not only have I gotten a ton of mail from him, which, boy, I'll tell you what, mail still works.
Yeah. I mean, look at voter contact. Voter contact wins elections. Okay. Mail works, phones, door-to-door campaigning. Look, this ground game, the ground game differences between the two national parties right now is unbelievable. For the life of me, as a campaign professional, I'm not speaking from a partisan point of view or biased point of view. I'm talking about as a professional in this business. I am flabbergasted. I am stunned at the abandonment of the ground game, regardless of COVID, by the Democrats and the Biden campaign. The Biden campaign especially, I mean, my goodness, especially with the enthusiasm factor. Look, I mean, we know this. Democrats are not voting for Joe Biden as much as they are voting against Donald Trump. And that matters. That's a huge point. While Republicans are voting for Donald Trump. And the enthusiasm factor is a real thing. We see it in these rallies. I mean, in the age of COVID, the numbers that this man is continuing to pull is impressive. Now, you and I both know that rallies and yard signs and stuff like that don't win elections, not directly. They can assist the game a little bit, but what directly wins elections is one thing, and that is votes. And that is why your grassroots game is so important. You and I both know that it's a simple equation, Ashley. It's a really damn simple equation on how to win an election. Now, the methodologies and the strategies to do it are different. And you're right, Obama for America set a new standard in the grassroots game and changed the game in 2008 and 2012. And the equation, though, is still the same as it's been since the beginning of time in the Roman Senate. And it's you have to use the grassroots. You have to go door to door. You have to identify who supports you. And you build a file of who supports you, and then once you've identified your supporters, you switched into the GOTV or the Get Out the Vote effort when it's the GOTV phase, and you push those people out to the polls to vote or submit their mail-in ballot or whatever. So I'll be honest with you, as a professional, I have no idea, none, what the hell the Biden campaign is doing right now in the GOTV phase. I have no idea. None, Ashley. I mean, my God, Trump is in 5 rallies in 5 different states every day. Biden's doing one maybe. And his VP candidate, who's young and vibrant and has energy, I don't understand why she's not going all over the place. I do not. They're just trying to run out the clock. They hope that they have the election in the bag, and this late momentum for Donald Trump is not enough. And my goodness, what a lazy, questionable strategy, in my opinion.
Well, from what I've heard, they have a really strong phone banking game going on, but again, that only gets you so far, and the returns are so low. I mean, you have to make hundreds and hundreds of calls to have a decent conversation.
But real quick, I mean, you and I both know campaigns. Look, I don't know what the Biden campaign is doing. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. They may have a great phone game, but you and I both know that campaigns who have terrible grassroots games, who have terrible ground games, always pivot to the my phones are awesome tactic. and look, it's so much easier to disprove a bad ground game than this phone game thing, because you precinct to precinct, you can see and you can get a feel on whether or not a campaign is actually out there doing the work and canvassing. And when you're out there saying, well, 1/4 my game, my phones are awesome, I don't buy it. It's not a winning strategy. It's not a winning strategy. It's lazy.
Right.
And you know what? Even if Joe Biden's phones are great, they're excellent, I guarantee you Donald Trump's phones are excellent too, because they've been doing everything right in the grassroots game so far.
That's right. Well, I can tell you this, Josh. However it shakes out, the amount of mail-in voting that's going to happen this year is so unprecedented. It will be a game changer for political consultants for the next 60 years in terms of the way that they set vote goals and they, rearrange their money through the last GOTV phases of the campaign, because all of a sudden now you're going to be tracking matchbacks in a totally different way.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's right. That's right, and I can concede that point. I think it would be accurate to say campaigns who early shifted their focus in the to the early vote and their money to consultants focus on that are going to be much better positioned than campaigns that didn't. That's fair. Yeah.
Well, and I feel really fortunate, frankly, that I came up in politics in Washington State, which has been all vote by mail for a long time. So that idea of, hey, we're running towards Election Day, is a total myth. You're running to the day the ballots drop. I mean, they drop 3 weeks before Election Day. And for months and months beforehand, that's the day you're aiming towards. You're not aiming to Election Day. You're aiming towards those magic 3 weeks that's your window. Right. And that's a strategy that can be hard for other people to get their heads around.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, campaign managers and staffers and consultants that aren't used to it they're behind the curve, and those of us that have worked in heavy vote by mail states or all vote by mail states before we're in much better position. But I want to bring this up too, because today in our model, I was talking to a Democratic staffer who's bringing up that the fact that Joe Biden is and Democrats are killing Republicans in the air war. They're dominating TV ads and radio ads and online buys, and that's true. I mean, they're just pummeling Republicans with money and advertisements right now. I was taking some heat from this Democrat consultant and a whole lot of people from the left today, because the election recon model actually flipped Pennsylvania to Trump's column by 0.2% today.
No.
And, I've been taking heat from the right for 6 weeks now, because for 6 weeks our model has had Joe Biden up. Today's the first time Trump took just a razor thin lead in the model today. But this Dem consultant, he said to me, hey, look, man, we're pummeling Republicans in the air war, and I was like, yeah, dude, I agree with that. That's fair. That's fact. But it was the same thing in 2016 when Hillary Clinton had a crap ton more money than Donald Trump, and she pummeled him in the air war as well. And look where that got her in 2016. And listen, I'm with you. Okay. The mail and the canvassing goes deep, and TV, radio, online buys, ad buys only go so far, and it's all combined. It's all combined. It all matters. But when you're only doing one half of the game, and then you're letting the other side do all of the game, even if you're beating them at the first half of the game, that's not a winning strategy in anything: sports, politics, combat, whatever. principle or whatever you want to apply there. If you only play a first half game, you're going to get your butt kicked in the second half, and our model certainly suggests that's where it's going right now. And look, I would not be surprised for the first time for these battleground states, especially. I mean, it's not going to happen in California and Oregon, but in these battleground states, I wouldn't be surprised for like the first time in modern history that Republicans, because they're the only ones running a ground game, that Republicans are going to win late-breaking ballots and provisionals.
Yeah,
Because,
I see what you're saying.
Canvassing matters. It matters in a big way. And I really think, I mean, listen, this won't apply in states like Washington and California again. Because, I mean, listen, if I'm a Republican in one of these battleground states and I'm up by, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 votes, I'm going to feel a lot safer than I traditionally would, just for the fact that the Democrats haven't run a ground game.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look, Republicans are freaking out right now about potential voter fraud and extra ballots and all this stuff. And look, Trump has absolutely positioned his legal staff across the country to challenge late ballots and stop the count, on election night or a couple days after, and that's hard for us to project and prognosticate on. And it's up, really it's up to the courts to decide, and we'll have to just see how that plays out. But you and I know how this works. Again, it goes back to the simple formula of how to win elections. You have to ID your voters. You have to ID the people that support your candidate. And then you got to push them out to vote. And as they vote, that voter file gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And if you're talking to somebody that's already voted, you're really wasting your time.
Right.
And look, I mean, and as your people vote, you monitor to make sure that their votes have been counted. And if there's a problem with their ballot or something's wrong or there's an error, you go back and you contact them and you cure the ballot or you have them go fix the ballot. And that's really the general operation. I just don't know how Democrats are going to be able to effectively do that because they haven't effectively canvassed. I don't know how they're going to have an effective or an efficient voter file to do this operation from based on their lack of a canvassing effort.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And frankly, in states that haven't dealt with a lot of early or mail voting before, like Pennsylvania, frankly, I do wonder as ballots start to come back in, what kind of files you really can get back from the Secretary of State's office as a local county or parishes, so that you can match it with your voter file, your data file that you have to just find out how many of your folks have turned out.
Right,
I just don't know that it's going to be clean.
Right, and we're really blessed here in California because we have this company that I love to rave about, PDI.
Yeah, good old PDI.
I mean, but Political Data Incorporated, they're the best in the business, though.
It is.
And it's so frustrating for me when you're running like campaigns out of state and in states that aren't used to this huge vote by mail thing, because we're spoiled rotten here in California by PDI. And so, PDI just gives campaigns the tools here in California that just don't exist nationally yet. And because of that fact, because those tools aren't in place across the country, and because of Democrats' lack of a ground game to identify these voters, I think they're right to be very worried tonight.
Yep.
And look, I know we're beating a dead horse here on this canvassing thing, but the lack of canvassing combined with the Democrats' messaging right now, which is to answer what they perceive to be Donald Trump's and Republicans' extremism with what Republicans and moderates see as extremism of their own, the Democrats' extremism, which is like court packing, and expand or abolishing the Electoral College and expanding the Senate. And look, I mean, this is just my gut feeling. It's completely subjective, so take it as it is. But I don't think it's a coincidence that immediately following the ACB confirmation, that the number one trending thing on Google was how do I change my vote, when Democrats lost their mind on these radical ideas.
Oh, geez, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, it happened right after the court confirmation, and I don't understand this messaging strategy from the left right now in this campaign, when I believe the vast majority of the center of America and maybe even all of the American people, the majority of all the American people, they are hungry right now for stability in unstable and uncertain times.
Sure. Yeah.
You picked a guy like Joe Biden, if you're a Democrat, over Bernie Sanders. That's how he won the nomination, because they saw Joe Biden as a return to an Obama era status quo. And whether you liked President Obama or you disliked President Obama, the man did win 2 national elections. And now the messaging from the left after the primary has driven hard to the left. And now you're giving centrists and maybe even moderate Democrats a choice between the extremism they know and the extremism they don't know. And I think, for a lot of these people, there's a fear that radical revolutionary ideas from the left are more scary than what they see right now in President Trump and Republicans. Well,
you have a point there. I don't know any Democrat who is concerned about voting for Joe Biden. It just doesn't have that same, they don't have the same fear that maybe, or uncertainty that they did with Hillary Clinton, because now after 4 years of Trump, they're going to hold their nose and do whatever they want to do. It's those Democrats, it's the jobs-focused Democrats, and that's a really specific brand, that I think those are going to be the deciders.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I ask you the question, what region of the country do those jobs, labor-focused people dominate?
Yeah, the Midwest. The Midwest.
Right, absolutely. Those voters dominate the Midwest, where this thing's going to be won or lost. And just, I don't understand where the Democrats, the left, and the Biden campaign's coming from a messaging strategy, because listen, I mean, your VP candidate, it co-authored the Green New Deal, which is terrible for labor, and I mean, look, I mean, Nancy Pelosi may be still in charge inside the Capitol building, inside the Beltway, but outside the Beltway, I'm telling you, the Democratic Party has some real divisions. I'm telling you, from a national messaging standpoint, it's really AOC and the squad. I mean, they're in charge.
Yeah, I think she knows it. There's got to be some power plays behind doors.
Yeah, you and I both know AOC's been called to the principal's office a lot of times. But long story short, man, listen, I've been very critical of the Democrats' messaging and ground game tonight. But for all you Republicans and Trump supporters out there that are getting all giddy over this, I mean, you have to remember President Trump's favorabilities have never been above water. There's a couple of polls out there today, like Rasmussen, just a couple of them, but they surprisingly, they have President Trump's like job approval at 50, 51, 52. And, Republicans act, like Donald Trump is this really popular guy, and he's not. He's not. His base may love him and rave about him, but the center doesn't like him. They really don't like the guy. And the left, they hate him. They hate him with a passion I've never seen. I thought the hatred against George Bush, Bush 43 was crazy. Man, it's like 10 times that for Donald Trump from the left. So, I think, listen, I think if Donald Trump loses the election tomorrow, it's because the center feels they can't, the center feels like he failed as a leader in a time of national crisis with COVID. But I don't believe that. Well, I believe that that's showing up somewhere in the country, especially in the races I'm involved in and especially in the Midwest. I have empirical data. I have empirical data in front of me that tells me a lot of voters, centrists and otherwise, are really upset with these Democrat governors, and they're harsher than other governors and the lockdowns. They want to go back to work. They want the schools to open. These are facts. This is not my opinion. And so, listen, I think these. If Democrats lose again, it's going to go back to these radical suggestions and messaging that they're pushing right now, plus the fact that they feel these Democrat governors have overstepped their executive power in a time of crisis. and they could help. Sink or weigh down Joe Biden and his campaign. And I'm telling you, I'm telling you right now, every time I think Donald Trump his messaging has been simple and to the point. He's hammered Biden on corruption. He's hammered the Democrats on court packing and the radical suggestions. And he's hammered these Democrat governors who have just kept their states closed. And he's trying to reopen the economy while the Democrats are trying to shut down. That's his message. And he's sticking to it. And every time I'm just sitting there thinking like, man, I don't know what this guy is doing. 9 times out of 10, he's proven to be an evil genius. He's proven right, and it's a winning strategy when every talking head out there condemns him for his strategy. It's worked thus far for the American people, I think. And man, his messaging discipline, everyone thinks he's an undisciplined message guy. I'm telling you, man, what this guy has stuck on the same 4 or 5 key talking points every day for weeks and weeks now.
What we know, Joshua, from our time in elections and campaigns is that it is about repetition. All you have to do is say something it takes 7 times for somebody to hear something and then be able to tell it to their friend verbatim.
That is a really, really good John Pashong cliche and John Pashongism right there, the whole 7-word thing or 7-time thing. Yeah, that was really good.
And Donald Trump, he might not have a lot of profound things to say, but whatever he does, he sure as shit is going to say them 47 times.
Right, and I really think, his message is pointed and targeted, where I really feel like the Democrats are like all over the place, and his biggest weakness is COVID, and I don't really feel like that is... I think that's like lost in the sauce right now for Democrats. Like they're hitting them on COVID, but they're hitting them on a million other things, and they've hit them for 4 years on a million things. And I think their line of attack is really lost in the sauce. And I was talking to a Republican-led staffer from the Midwest today, and he told me, he said, "Hey, look, my boss's campaign, our internals got really, really healthy around here once people quit talking about COVID."
Wow.
And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, really, the messaging, the attacks of the Democratic Party on Republican candidates have been so crowded. They've been full of so many things that COVID's no longer dominating the minds of the voter. It's not. When's the last time COVID really was like the top issues in the voters' minds? It's like the economy, and since the ACB thing, it's been the court and the future of the court and all this stuff. And I think that's really profound, because Joe Biden hammered Donald Trump in the first in the first part of the second debate. But since then, man, it really doesn't feel like to me that it has been like a sole laser beam focus point on Donald Trump's weak spot so far, or for this last portion of the campaign. What do you think?
Yeah, well, and I almost just wonder if it just stopped testing well, at some point. It just wasn't a winning message, so they pulled it out of the cycle.
You may be right. I don't know what the Biden internals are showing, but again, I keep hearing from Republican campaigns in the Midwest, and they're like universal across the spectrum: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, that the anger about these governor shutdowns is palpable right now. These blue-collar, labor-focused workers, these middle-class workers, are frustrated. They want to get back to a normal life. They want their kids back in school. And listen, I'm not taking a side on this COVID thing. I'm just stating the facts. Like if this group, this labor, blue-collar set of voters in the Midwest are pissed at what they see to be overreach by these Democratic governors, it's just a fact. It's going to play in the election.
It absolutely does. I think all of these underlying frustrations, they're going to come out in really nuanced ways that they're going to study the 2020 election year for a long, long, long time, specifically because of everything that had to change really fast because of COVID.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see an election like this ever again.
No, I think you're right.
Well, I want to transition now. Let's talk about how we think tomorrow is going to finish out. I think we've broken down how we've gotten here really well so far in this conversation, Ashley. So that's, I think everybody tuning in tonight, everyone's texting me. Everybody wants to know, how's it going to go? How's it going to know? And I'm going to tell you right now, anybody who says they know what's going to happen tomorrow, they are absolutely full of crap, absolutely full of shit. Okay. First off, the COVID itself has disrupted all the trends and behaviors that we look at to try to model and project elections. And the polling has been I really think the polling has been atrocious. I mean, case in point, the ABC News and the Washington Post put out a poll last week that had Joe Biden up plus 17 points in Wisconsin, literally suggesting that Joe Biden's going to win Wisconsin by a bigger margin than Barack Obama in 2008.
I mean, that's just absurd.
I mean, it's like, just stop. Absolutely stop. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And that's why there's people like me out here who is a pro-am, at least in election prognostication and commentary. That's why we're getting followers and a voice, because people don't trust the mainstream media because of polls like that one. And now because of the mainstream media and the professional prognosticators, or as Red Eagle Politics likes to say, the election mafia, or, the subset of the election mafia that I've coined here at Election Recon, the National Polling Complex, because of what it really appears to be at this point. I mean, listen, if they're proven right and Biden wins by double digits, I'll admit that I'm wrong after the election. But I think it's insanity. I mean, the two narratives are this. Their narrative, the professional prognosticators' narratives, is that Biden's going to win by double digits, and with 360 to 415 electoral votes. And of course, the minority narrative, the other narrative out there with voices like us here at Election Recon, is that the race is going to be much, much closer, and that the polls are wrong. Now, I want to be clear. I want to be absolutely clear. The polls can still be wrong, and Joe Biden still wins the election, because the mainstream media has this race so far in Joe Biden's corner in their polls and their projections that there could still be a polling error. There can still be a sizable polling error, and Joe Biden still wins a very close election. But man, I mean, good night with this with these professionals and the mainstream media right now. But, I mean, again, and there's really kind of a third narrative that's been coming out now from the conservative commentators and punditry out there, that Trump is on his way to a landslide election. And I think that's probably it's less likely than I think the election is going to be close. But I just want to, again, circle back on the point that, it's just basic math that, the polls can be significantly wrong, but Joe Biden can still win this election.
Right.
And I think the most interesting narrative for me in this election right now is we're going to know where the American where the American electorate really stands, because the turnout is going to be high. It's going to be really high. We don't know how high yet, but it's going to be significant, and nobody's going to be able to turn and point to the fact, well, only 60% of America voted. So even though this side won the election, 40% of the American people didn't vote.
Yeah, no, not at all.
We're really going to know. We're really going to know, Ashley, where America truly stands and where it wants its future to go. And the point I'm trying to make here is look, I mean, listen, if Donald Trump and Republicans pull off another win, another upset at this point based on the media narrative, if they pull off a win here, it's going to be ice water on the soul. It's going to shock the system of the Democratic Party if in a high turnout elections, Republicans pull out a victory.
Yeah, it'll be an identity crisis for sure.
Yeah, right. I think what's most interesting, I think what's exciting for me, is we're really going to find out in this election if the silent majority is actually a real thing.
Yeah.
Because look, I mean, if Trump and Republicans win this thing, it's going to be proof positive that the silent majority does exist. And anybody out there that goes, well, you didn't win the popular vote or whatnot. If you're talking about the popular vote in a presidential election in this country, you clearly do not understand the rules of the game, and you need to stop. It's about electoral votes. That's how presidents are elected in this country. So if the Republicans win, proof positive the silent majority exists. But on the other hand, a scenario that I don't think the right or conservatives are prepared for is if the professional prognosticators, if the election mafia, if the national polling complex are proven right and Biden wins big, that's going to be water on the souls of conservatives. That's going to shock conservatives in this country in a way, because it will be proof positive. It'll be proven that the silent majority doesn't exist, or it no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
So I really believe that both parties are going to have a hard look in the mirror at the end of this election. If Trump wins and the Republican Party wins, I think Trumpism is going to dominate the Republican Party for a long time. If Trump loses, I think you're going to see the establishment try to retake control of the party and move the party closer to the center. For the Democrats, I really don't know what's going to happen, whether they win or lose, because I really believe, despite how it may look on the surface, when you dig deep down, I really believe that Democrats are far more fractured and divided than Republicans. And just in the party, there's just more factions in the Democratic Party right now. And I couldn't tell you what they're going to do, the Democrats, whether they win or lose. But I think no matter what, there's going to be a battle for control for the heart of the Democratic Party.
Both parties are going to have some very interesting identity questions over the next 2 decades.
No, I really agree with you 100%. I think it's going to be really interesting to see in the next decade or next few years how the politic, how the ideology shift both internally for the parties and externally in this time of uncertainty and tumult in our country. But Ashley, it is time to bring this performance to its crescendo, to its finale. And I'm interested in knowing what you, Ashley Stubbs, professional woman that you are, where you think the election is going to finish off tomorrow night. That's really the big question everyone's been waiting for. I think you and I both agree that the election's going to be close, that it's going to be a tight election. It's not going to be this blowout thing.
Yep.
So inquiring minds want to know what you, Ashley Stubbs, and I, what we think, how we think it's going to finish up. So, let's looking at the House first, I think, I think I don't really think the Republicans have a chance to take the House back tomorrow night. I think it's just too big of a hill to climb. The Democrats have too much of a majority. But really, look, I mean, if Republicans do take control of the House tomorrow night, it has been a historic and catastrophic night for the Democratic Party.
To say the least, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the big question is can Republicans stop the bleeding, maybe gain a couple seats back in the House to put them in a better position for the next midterm elections? Or are Democrats going to expand their already large majority in the House of Representatives? On the Senate side, I think that has gotten a lot more interesting in the final weeks of the campaign. You've had Cal Cunningham, the Democratic challenger out of North Carolina. He's caught up in a huge sexting scandal. That state looked like it was for sure going to Democrats. Now Tom Tillis looks like he's back in the race. It's within the margin of error, and Tom Tillis has always historically overperformed his polling. Joni Ernst in Iowa, for example, the Des Moines Register came out with a poll today, and really the Des Moines Register has been the most accurate state poll in the last 4 cycles, and it has Joni Ernst up 4 and Donald Trump up 7 in Iowa. And, then you have, all these other races like Susan Collins in Maine. Just to be clear, man, if Susan Collins holds her seat in Maine, Republicans are holding the Senate.
Yeah.
I mean, there's there's no scenario that I can see where Susan Collins holds in Maine for Republicans and Republicans don't retain their majority in the Senate. And, really another thing to talk about too in the Senate race is really nobody thought the Democrats would be on defense anywhere in the country other than Doug Jones in Alabama, who looks like he's going to lose his seat. But really these Senate races in Minnesota and Michigan have gotten real interesting. They've gotten real tight here at the end as well. And if Republicans pick off one of those two seats, I also can't see a scenario where Democrats retain control of the Senate. And, Martha McSally, she's tightened that race up in Arizona where it looked like Mark Kelly was going to win big. That might be a much closer race than we think as well heading into election night. So I'd like to know where you think the House is at, where you think the Senate's at. We've talked about the presidency all night. So where do you think the nation is at in the battle for Congress?
Yeah. Well, I'll answer all your questions, but then I'm going to lightning round it back to you since your model's built and done, which means you get to do this now. So I think you said all the right things. Arizona, we haven't seen a state Senate election. We haven't seen the ticket split between whoever a state elects as their senator and then who they elect as president. So I think I really think Kelly is a really strong contender. I think it's totally possible that Biden takes Arizona, and they're going to come hand in hand. If Kelly wins Arizona, then so does Biden. That being said, if Trump could just retain Arizona and win Minnesota, then he doesn't actually need to win, frankly, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin.
Well, to that point, if Trump holds Ohio, which I expect him to do,
yep.
If Trump holds on to North Carolina, which I'm way more bullish on his chances than I was a month ago,
mm-hmm.
and I'm really convinced right now that Trump's chances in Florida are excellent. I really think he's going to win Florida. There's nothing in the early data right now that supports a Biden win right now in Florida.
Right.
I mean, look, stranger things have happened, and I guess there's something I could be missing where Biden wins, and if I'm wrong tomorrow, I'm wrong. But the reality is even Democrats were saying that they needed 300, 400,000 early vote lead in Florida to have a chance, and it's down to like 100,000 so odd votes right now in the early vote for Democrats. So honestly, I think Florida is gone for the Democrats. And the reality is, if Trump wins Florida, wins North Carolina, wins Ohio, all he needs to win the presidency is pick off Arizona and one Midwestern state, or win two Midwestern states, and Trump's reelected to the presidency. But
yep.
There's another state out there, Georgia. Where the early vote is not healthy at all for Republicans right now, and Democrats have made that state awfully dangerous for Trump and the Republicans. I still think Republicans have the edge there, but if Biden and the Democrats can step in there and block Trump or the Republicans, if they get blocked there in the Senate, that would be a tremendous shift in Donald Trump's path to the presidency and the Republicans' path to retaining the majority.
Yeah. Well, and in that regard, the Democrats did well. Ossoff has a lot of name ID, so that was the right person for that race. But yeah, let's wrap it up. We need to get sleep because sleep is going to start to become important.
Okay, lightning round. First to you.
Lightning round.
Okay, first to you. What do you think is going to happen in the House?
Democrats keep the House.
Yes, I think that's extremely likely. But do you think Democrats expand their majority in the House, or do Republicans pick up some seats?
I think Republicans will pick up a few seats, but it's not going to change a whole lot.
Wow. Okay. Bullish prediction there from Ashley. What do you think about the Senate? Who's going to control the Senate?
Democrats will win the Senate. Wow. And I think that Gideon's going to take Maine, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, let's walk through that. So probably you think Kelly wins Arizona. Hickenlooper wins in Colorado.
Yep.
And you said Gideon's going to win Maine, so that's 3. Where's the other seat for Democrats to win control of the Senate?
Well, I think Georgia is a strong contender. I think that
Got you thinking there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just get this sense that the Democrats are going to take the Senate.
Okay, that's absolutely fair enough. Let's go to the big one, presidency of the United States. Who is going to win on election night, Trump or Biden?
My gut says Joe Biden.
Okay, by how much electoral vote-wise?
A very small margin. Yeah, lightning round to you.
Okay, lightning round to me, and then we'll finish up.
House.
I really trust our model, and I'm of the belief that I'm not going to make any final predictions until 3 p.m. tomorrow when our model's finished running. But as of right now, as of this late hour on election night eve, I think Democrats are poised to pick up seats and expand their majority in the House. And my reasoning behind that is the redrawing of the congressional districts in North Carolina last year guarantees Democrats at least 2 seats out of that state. I think while Republicans are going to win statewide in Texas, the early vote margins in the urban and ex-urban areas look really good for Democrats, and I think they can pick up 2 to 3 seats right there. So in my mind, that's 5 seats already. But I'm really, if Republicans hold the line, okay, I think the Democrats may pick up another seat in Georgia, I think, as well. But if Republicans hold the line, it's going to come out of the Midwest and out of California. And the 2 races in California I'm really going to be watching is the rematch between Mike Garcia and Democrat Assemblywoman Christy Smith. Mike Garcia won the special election a few months ago. If he holds that seat, that's good news for Republicans. And then the California 21st and the rematch between David Valadao and TJ Cox. If Valadao can win his seat back, I think Republicans probably had a better night nationally than I expected. But I'm going to be looking at like Michigan 3, Michigan 6, Minnesota 1, Minnesota 7. If Republicans can sweep there, they may add some seats. You never know. But I believe that Democrats will expand the House in the single digits margin. They'll add seats in the single digits tomorrow night. But I'm going to go ahead and wait for the election recon model to finish at 3 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow before I make any final predictions.
I don't think that's very fair, but I accept it.
Hey, it's good to be the boss.
Who takes the Senate?
I'm very bullish on Republicans' chances to hold the Senate, to hold their Senate majority right now. I think it's really going to come down to North Carolina. If Tom Tillis can hold that seat in North Carolina, I think Republicans have a great shot at holding their majority. In Iowa, I think Joni Ernst has come on real strong at the end, and I think she holds there in Iowa. I think the Republicans hold both seats in Georgia. I'm much less confident about that now than I was a month ago based on the turnout and the Democrat performance in Georgia. But if Republicans can hold Georgia, North Carolina, and Iowa, and I think Republicans will hold in Montana as well. Daines, the Republican there, is going to hold because Bullock, the Democrat, while he was a popular governor, during this campaign, he's really hurt himself on answers with court packing and gun control in particular, and I think that's just very damaging for a Democrat in Montana to move that far left, and I think he's hurt himself there. So I'm going to stick with our model. No final predictions until 3 p.m. tomorrow, of course, but our model has it 51-49-ish for Republicans to control, but that's razor thin. Our model only has it at 54% that Republicans hold their majority.
All right. I'm taking notes here so we know who has to buy drinks. Okay. The big seat is going to be Biden or Trump?
My gut tells, listen, I believe Trump is going to win Florida. Like I said earlier, I think Florida has lost to Biden. I think Trump's going to win in North Carolina. And I'm going to break with you on Arizona. Because I see a completely reasonable and plausible scenario where Trump wins Arizona by, say, like one 1.5 points and McSally loses. Consistently in our model, Trump is performing about 3 points better in Arizona than McSally, so I can totally see a scenario where Trump wins by 1 or 2 points and McSally loses at the same margin she lost to Kristen Sinema, or by 1 or 2 points. And quite frankly, I don't think Martha McSally is a great candidate, and I think Mark Kelly's campaign has just been way better. And with him being an astronaut and a pilot and a military guy and a bona fide American hero, I can see a lot more ticket splitting than one would expect, even in this partisan environment.
Mm-hmm. So just to be clear, you're saying you think Trump is going to win Arizona, but it's going to be Trump Kelly.
No, I'm saying it's possible. Our model has it right now, Trump winning Arizona, but Kelly winning Arizona, both by tilt margins. No, I'll stand by the model. I can stand by the model there, and I trust the model. So yeah, I think it could be Trump Kelly there, and I'll go ahead and stand by that. But final predictions again at 3 p.m. tomorrow. We'll see where the model finishes up. I think Trump wins Iowa. Look, if Trump wins the Sun Belt like my model thinks, like I think, especially because Biden really hasn't campaigned there. I mean, the guy's practically lived in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and the Midwest. He's gone down to Florida and Georgia a couple times. Look, I mean, if Trump wins one Midwestern state, and I mean the big four from the old blue wall, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, or Minnesota, this race is over and Trump's reelected.
I agree.
It's hard for me to envision a scenario. It's certainly possible, but it's hard for me to envision a scenario where Trump wins big in the Midwest but loses in the Sun Belt. And the pollster that I trust the most in all of the land, Barris from Big Data Poll, known as the People's Pundit, just released his final Pennsylvania poll. He has Trump up, and he has late breakers going to Trump 3-1, and he's the only one that called the late breakers right in 2016. So I think by the slimmest of margins, and I'm talking razor thin right now, razor thin, as of midnight tonight, and again, it could change by 3 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, but by just following our model, I believe by the slimmest of margins, Trump is favored to be reelected president of the United States. But I want to see this last batch of data that's going to go into our model tomorrow. I want to see how that shifts the model around, because I think it's super, super close in the Midwest.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just to point out how close our model really believes this race is, there's 141 electoral votes. 141 electoral votes in our model that are in the tilt margin right now. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But here, right around midnight here, Ashley, I think the slightest of possible edges really is in Donald Trump's favor for all the stuff that we talked about tonight. But there's a caveat to that. We have to admit, I'm man enough to admit that it is, that's based on my belief that the pollsters are wrong, that the national media is wrong, that the professional prognosticators are wrong. And I have to admit that there is a chance that they are right. And if the pollsters, the mainstream media, the election mafia, if they are right, then Donald Trump and Republicans are dead on arrival tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
But you and I both know, and we'll finish with this. It's all about turnout now.
That's right.
And it's all about turnout. And so, listen, if Republicans have 65 to 70% of the turnout tomorrow on Election Day, and it's still a high turnout. I mean, look, listen, Democrats, I really believe that Democrats have cannibalized their vote in this extraordinary high early vote that we've seen so far, much more than Republicans, if only because, look, the president has taken a shit all over the vote by mail system, and Republicans, I think, they don't trust the postal system now. They don't trust the election system, so I think they're going to hand walk their ballots in across the country tomorrow. And if I hear about long lines tomorrow and turnout is high and Republicans get the share of the election day vote we think they're going to get, Democrats are in trouble. They're in real trouble if that is indeed what's going to happen tomorrow morning, afternoon, and night. That's honestly where I'm at tonight. That's my true feelings on the situation tomorrow, and that's where I am. That's where I am tonight, heading into election day, election night tomorrow. What do you think?
I think I'm very interested to see about that sleeper cell of Republicans who are voting for Biden.
I don't think they exist in large numbers. I really, really don't. I think the pollsters that I trust, they all show Republican support behind President Trump now at 90 to 94%. And I think that's not just subjective data from polling. That's backed up by the primary strength of the president, who had 88 to 92% of generic Republican support in the primaries, and I think that matters. I think if there was a big protest vote against the president from Republicans out there, it would have shown up in the data, and we're not seeing it. It was there a little bit in the late spring, early summer when COVID situation was at its highest, but I think with everything I've said tonight, Ashley, I really believe that the Republicans have coalesced behind Trump, whether they like him or not, because of the Democrats' response to the Supreme Court confirmation and these radical suggestions about how they're going to change the structure of the government. I think Republicans are going to hold their nose. The Republicans that don't like the president, I think a lot of them are holding their nose, even if they don't like this guy. And I really think that the data supports that. And, I really don't have the data to back up this point, but I have to believe that right-leaning independents and decline to states and NPPs are probably doing the same thing.
Yes. NPPs, it's always those are always interesting folks to try to figure out what they are doing. But with that said, yeah, I think it's going to be a really exciting 24 hours.
Yep, everyone needs to buckle up because, honestly, I can see a scenario where Biden wins a blowout. I can be man enough to admit that, and that my model and we're wrong here at Election Recon. And I can also see, a little bit less, but I can see a scenario that Trump and Republicans win a wave election right now. But I think it's far more likely that this thing's going to be much, much closer than the media is letting on, and one side or the other is going to win by a much more modest, much more marginal, final result.
The scenario I see involves a lot of litigation, frankly.
Yeah, and that would be just absolutely terrible for the country. I've been preaching it week in and week out on this show that people have to accept the election results. We have to. Whether it's a win for the right or a win for the left, we have to accept the results. If this thing goes to the courts and people are delegitimizing these election results for political gain, we're in deep trouble. The ship is sinking, and that's going to put another hole in it. So let's just hope one way or the other it's decisive and people accept the results. Just so we're clear, it's one drink per call, one for the House, one for the Senate, and one for the President. Is that what you got?
That is, I'll take that.
All right. Well, we'll be in touch tomorrow, I'm sure. Ashley, we're way over time, but it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on this very late night special episode.
Thanks, Josh.
That, of course, once again, was my friend, my colleague, Ashley Stubbs. We thank her so much for joining us so late tonight to help provide you this podcast. And most of you will probably be listening to this podcast tomorrow when you wake up. Most of you hopefully are getting a good night's sleep. Buckle up. This wild ride is coming to an end. And it has been our privilege to be with you on this journey here from Election Recon. Our whole team thanks all of you, our listeners and our fans. When we started this project 6 weeks ago, just over 6 weeks ago, we couldn't have imagined that this is the level of support we would have already reached. So We sincerely thank each and every one of you. Tomorrow night, if you want to follow where our model is taking us, where our model says who has the chance to win, you can follow our election coverage on our new website, electionrecon.com, electionrecon.com, up and running. We hope you give it a look. It will continue to have the odds to win as states are being called across the country. Our decision desk is going to be run by Jeff and Lauren tomorrow. They will be on social media making race calls as the results come in. So be sure to follow us on social media as you always do. We're looking forward to it. We will not have a podcast tomorrow. There will be no update tomorrow. I, of course, will be on KFIV 1360 Power Talk Radio, providing election analysis and coverage. That starts at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're interested in some spin-free and you want to take a respite, you want to take a break from the partisan spin coverage out there, we hope that you join us. I will, of course, be with my partner in crime, Mike Douglas, tomorrow night. You can find us on KFIV1360.com, on the iHeartRadio app, or if you live in the Central Valley, Motherlode, or the mountains, you can find us on 1360 AM on your dial. And again, our final projections will be at 3 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. That's when the final projections of our model will come out. Right before polls close, we want to give you guys the best projection absolutely possible. And we're looking forward to see if our model is right, wrong, close, not close. So that's very exciting for all of us, and we've put a lot of work into that model. Again, I can't thank you guys enough. If you like our show, you can follow us on social media at Election Recon on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Of course, you can follow this podcast wherever you find your podcasts, on Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, or Apple Podcasts. You can write the show at electrecon electrecon@gmail.com. And of course, you can check out our new website to stay up to date with news and information tomorrow as results come in, electionrecon.com, electionrecon.com. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege and an honor to be with each and every one of you through this journey over the last month and a half. And I just want to finish with this one point. No matter what happens tomorrow, the sun is going to rise again the next day. We cannot resort to violence over elections in this country. It is absolutely un-American. Please stay safe. Keep your families safe. We have to, as a society and as a country, find our moral compass pointing north again. We have to find our center, and we absolutely have to find a way to find our humanity and our dignity for our fellow neighbor and countrymen again. Please, please do not resort to violence regardless of what happens in this election. Please. That is a sincere plea from the bottom of my heart. We are all Americans first. We are a freedom-loving people. But at the end of the day, we are also all human beings. Let's treat each other with respect and dignity. If we lose, let's dust ourselves off. And if we win, let's do it gracefully. And with that, America, I will see you on the flip side. We will have a full Saturday episode as regularly scheduled to break down everything that's happened in the election. Hopefully it's decided by Saturday night. I look forward to joining you all again on Saturday. Stay safe, do well to others. Good night, America.